Hey, I just wanted to talk about this concept of kind of innate knowing, and some people will call it kind of knowing from source, kind of like an intuition, but for me it feels a little different. But there's this general knowing beyond thought and rational thinking. It's more a feeling and presence from the body. And I want to just talk about the distinction between mind and body and being. And so for me, there's going from mind to body and then into being, kind of into the heart. And then so that's like thinking and feeling and then being. And that's, you can also maybe say mind and body and soul or spirit or heart. And but there's this space where we use our breath to connect to the body, and then you can really feel the body, and you can like sink down, feel that support of the earth, of the ground. And then you really come into the body, and through meditation and calmness and silence, then we can really just be with our body, be with presence, be with now, in a non-judgmental, very caring and loving way. And then once we engage with feelings, emotions, and those sensations, how they're kind of presented by the body, we have the stories in our heads. Why are we feeling this way? What is causing it? And that's all well and good, and we can, find value in this, and we can work with that, and we can do some really wonderful journaling and be kind of figure out some bullet points of ways to take action and have some mental preparation. But real healing and real value is, we can't only be in the mind. We have to engage with our body, with our feelings. And when we engage more and more with our body and with our feelings, with hunger, it's one of the easiest places to start with. I'll share a little video about that another time. But here we're coming into the body and we're just feeling it, non-judgmental, with a lot of love, a lot of compassion, and a lot of space. So it's really easy when it's very pleasurable or pleasant feelings, but when it's unpleasant feelings, we're kind of taught in society, in most households, push those things away. Those things aren't welcome. I was always taught that anger, very unwelcome. Do not be angry, Michael. Do not be angry. I don't want you around here when you're angry. You're not allowed to be angry. Anger is bad, and you're a bad person when you're angry. So that's what I had instilled into my brain, and the same thing could happen for other people with jealousy, especially sadness and anger are some of two of the biggest ones. Anger is usually very outward expression of blame, and sadness is usually a very inward expression of blame. And so they're kind of two sides of the same coin there. But they're both usually, I've had another friend whose parents could not handle crying. They just, so, God bless her parents, they just could not handle emotions. They were both autistic, undiagnosed. My friend became a very, very impressive and amazing psychologist and social worker. And so, because of all of her pain, she was able to become a very, 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 very healing, helpful, impressive, knowledgeable social worker and psychologist. But her parents had autism, and they just can't deal with emotions. So when their children would become sad or crying, they would lock them in the closet or lock them in the garage by themselves and alone until they stopped crying. And they said, we'll only let you out when you stop crying. And what that also says is, we'll only love you when you're not crying. We'll only love you when you're happy, because you aren't lovable in all of your emotions. So what we're doing when we come into the body, all of that to say, we're coming into the body with a lot of love and a lot of compassion for anything that's present for us. And so when we do that, we just allow it to be there. We don't have to think at all. There's no rational thought. There's no, what does this mean? Why is this here? Is this good? Is this bad? It can feel pleasant and unpleasant, but remember, unpleasant doesn't mean bad, and pleasant doesn't mean good. These are just subjective viewpoints that have any number of stories behind them. So we can always say, pain bad, but if we don't have pain, how do we know what's hurting us? So really, in that perspective, pain good. So we put no judgments because everything is bad and everything is good, just depends on how you turn it and from which way you're looking at it. So here we have coming into the body and just feeling whatever sensations are there. Maybe we have some emotions, maybe we have physical sensations on our skin, heat in our hands, a heaviness or a lightness in our chest. Maybe we have those beautiful butterflies in our stomach. And we're just testing how are we? What is happening here? And the more we come into contact with the body through these feelings and sensations, the more we then come into contact with being, which is then that intuition. There's that kind of connection to God or higher self. There's connection to spirit. There's knowing. And I love this. For me, it's a sense of knowing. There's these differences. There's this connection to higher self where I feel like there's this actual presence of a great being. And then there's intuition where there's like this just feeling in my gut. And it's very similar to knowing, but it's a little different. There's this intuition where it's just like, okay, I feel like there's something here. Intuitively, I don't have any reasons. I don't have, my data points. I don't have the algorithm or the proof in, mathematical equations, which are wonderful to have. Nothing wrong with those. But sometimes intuition is the universe giving us a direction and us trusting in that. Trusting the universe, trusting our gut, right? We usually have that intuition coming from our gut, and that's where I believe that expression, comes from. We all have that gut feeling. And then there's a sense of knowing where it's just like, I have no idea why, but I know this is true. And that's usually for me when it comes around like intuition. Like, it's so easy to practice with food and stomach because our body knows what it needs. Our body knows what food it needs. And so if you want to come into practice intuition, I'll do a more detailed video on this, but if you want to practice intuition, you want to do it with food because your body knows exactly what it wants. There's a beautiful study. It's a very crazy study. I'll do a little, blip of it here, but a woman kind of adopted a bunch of kids. She was a scientist. She had a lab, and somehow she just adopted a bunch of these kids who were like, 0 to 6 years old, and just gave them an array of like 25 different foods that had, the complete nutritional mapping that anyone needs. And it was like, at food times, they just put out the food, and the baby or the child would choose for themselves what to eat and how much to eat. Sometimes they didn't want to eat at all, and that was fine. Other times they would choose different things. And a very cool part of that study, so cool, is there was one person who was really, really short on vitamin D, and there's a disease with there's a disease that comes from not having enough vitamin D. And so they knew this person had that disease, and they went straight for the cod liver. They ate cod liver for a week, and that was like the main thing they would eat. And apparently there's a lot of vitamin D in cod liver. So as soon as they fixed their rickets or shingles or something, they kind of finally had vitamin D sufficient, they never ate cod liver again, because we're usually pretty good in our vitamin D if we're outside and we're eating a balanced diet and such things. So on their own, without being told what to do, they're able to do this. And for me, this is partially intuition, where we're listening to the body, but then there's knowing that comes from an even deeper sense, from that greater self, higher self, God, connection to source, whatever we want to call that. And the more we connect to our body, the more we connect to intuition, the more we connect to knowing, the more we are remembering who we are, the truth of who we are, God in ourselves, God in everyone we see, and that connection to the source of all creation and the source of all being. So practice coming in. We can do a quick, what I call a check-in. So if you'll join me, just close your eyes here 1 minute, not even. Close your eyes, take a really nice long breath in. Nice long breath out. One more time, long breath in. Long breath out. Just feel your body here. Slower, softer breath in. Slower, softer breath out. Just feel your body. And just allow your breath to become normal, natural breath. Just feel your body here. Just notice. What do you feel? How do you feel? What is most present for you? Maybe it's your hands, or your head, or your stomach. Maybe there's a specific emotion. And you just allow it to be there. And just give it space. You can say hello. You can tell it that it's okay. You can tell it that everything is fine and that it's welcome. That you appreciate it being here. And one more. Big breath in, nice sigh out. Big breath. Nice sigh. I hope you have a really wonderful day and a wonderful week.